Hi, my name is Yin Gao and welcome to Dr. Gao's classroom. I'm a professional philosopher and I love classical Chinese poetry. Of course, I also have a passion for philosophies. I have been teaching classical Chinese philosophies for many years. Poetry is my hobby, philosophy is my life. Today, I'm going to start a new series on classical Chinese philosophies by the title of How to Enjoy Life Like a Daoist Master. Of course, I'm going to continue posting videos on classical Chinese poetry, but I would also like to share my knowledge on Chinese philosophies. I'm going to make one video on philosophies each month for the moment and see how you guys like it. In my new series, I'm going to discuss philosophical thoughts and ideas from Daoism, Confucianism, and other philosophical traditions from ancient China. I would like to incorporate poetry into my philosophical videos whenever it is appropriate to do so. This should be quite easy because the poets, scholar official often express their views from the philosophical traditions they held dear to their hearts. Today, I'm going to talk about a few ideas from Zhuangzi and a poem by Tao Yuanming, a 5th century poet, on how to find peace in one's heart and mind. The character Xin means both heart and mind, and Chinese people believe that they think with their hearts. So we have to incorporate the mind part into the function of heart and translate the character Xin as heart and mind. I might do a video on this concept in the future. Now, let me go back to my new video theory. The reason I choose this topic to start my new series is quite personal. The last 3 years were quite difficult for me because I experienced radical changes in my life. Reading Daoist texts such as Dao De Jing and Zhuangzi from time to time is quite helpful for me to find comfort and maintain a relatively stable mental state. So I was able to make reasonably good decisions under difficult circumstances. Of course, I'm also very fortunate to have wonderful friends and family who are willing to lend an ear for all my complaints and emotional garbage for hours at times. Anyway, now that I'm out of the woods, I would like to share the wisdom I gathered from Dao De Jing and Zhuangzi as well as a 5th century poet named Tao Yuanming. I would certainly make a video about Tao Yuanming in the future. If you're new to my channel, please check out my other videos on classical Chinese poetry, philosophies, and medical literature. If you like the content of this video, please click the like button and subscribe my channel. I also offer one-to-one online lessons on these subjects. If you would like to read the classic text, please contact me. Here's my email address. I have been thinking about making videos on classical Chinese philosophies for quite some time. After all, this is the field I know best. I have done research and teaching in this field for nearly 30 years. I sure have a lot to share with you. However, it is probably because my expertise and teaching experiences, I was not quite sure where to start and how to do it on YouTube at the beginning. I certainly do not want to turn my videos into lectures, which I delivered during my years at my university. I had no intention to make my video into a boring course on classical Chinese philosophy. I want to have more fun with making these videos. After nearly 6 months of pondering on what to do and talk to my friends with various ideas, I finally decided that I'm going to share my insights and wisdom I gathered from reading classical Chinese philosophical texts and my experiences of practicing these insights and wisdom in my own life. Like the ancient Chinese philosophers such as Confucius, Laozi, and Zhuangzi, we live in a time of radical social changes, wars, and instability. We have no idea how things are going to change in 10 years, 5 years, or even tomorrow. Many of us are under constant stress of the deadlines at work, paying for mortgage, difficulties in relationship, financial difficulties, and many, many more issues that we must face daily. I feel this is the time that we most need the wisdom from our ancestors, from the sages of ancient time, from the philosophers of past and present. After all, no one today is any wiser than Socrates, Confucius, Plato, or Zhuangzi. For the last 3 years, it was the Daoist texts such as Daoism and Zhuangzi that offered most help in my life. So I'm going to start my philosophy series with Daoist philosophy, particularly with Zhuangzi, which I find not only offer most comfort but also most helpful insights in dealing with difficult situations. Now, let me just give you a brief introduction of the Daoist philosophy. 道家哲学 or Daoist philosophy is an indigenous Chinese philosophical tradition for over 2,000 years. The two founding philosophers of Daoism are Laozi and Zhuangzi, and they were supposedly the authors of the two Daoist texts, Daoism and Zhuangzi, respectively. Laozi was supposedly a contemporary senior to Confucius. Confucius allegedly consulted Laozi about rituals. According to the Han Dynasty cult historian Sima Qian, Laozi was a native of Chuguo, or the state of Chu, at today's Sichuan province. He wrote down a text of 5,000 characters, which is known as Daoism, before he departed to the west from the Chinese border. Sima Qian confessed all the stories he gathered about Laozi were, like he already said, stories. We don't even know whether there was a historical figure called Laozi or not. After all, Laozi simply means the old master in Chinese. All we have today is Daoism. So let's pretend that there was an ancient philosopher called Laozi. Zhuangzi, on the other hand, was a real historical figure. Again, according to Sima Qian, Zhuangzi was a native of Songguo, or the state of Song, located at today's Henan province, a state that was among the first few ones to be conquered by other bigger states during the Warring State period. Zhuangzi seemed disappeared after his native state were carved up by the three most powerful states of Qi, Chu, and Wei in 286 BC, and many historians believe that he died that year. If a period is called Warring State period, we know there were a lot of wars going on at the time. Yet, from the text named after Zhuangzi, which was supposedly penned by him, we don't see much doom and gloom. Instead, we see humor, optimism, profound philosophical reflection, even joy and happiness. That is why I love reading Zhuangzi. The text is not an easy read. However, if you have the patience and perseverance, you will eventually start to enjoy reading it and appreciate it. There has been a huge amount of scholarly interest in this text during the last 20 years. The reason that Zhuangzi is so helpful is that he talks to us as if he knew what we are stressing over. Things such as our anxiety about our images or weight, our stresses over the inevitable social changes that happen to us, like the death of a loved one, our financial struggles, our anxiety about our career, etc. Today, I'm going to talk about just one thing: how to find peace given all the difficult changes that is happening around us. For Zhuangzi, finding peace is closely related to the idea of Xiaoyao. This concept is so important that it is in the title of the very first chapter of Zhuangzi, Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao literally means to walk leisurely or wandering around without a destination. However, Zhuangzi turned it into a philosophical concept with multi-layers of meanings. For Zhuangzi, Xiaoyao is a state of being free from stress, anxiety, and being content. It is a state of being free from any constraints imposed by habit, traditions, norm, social expectations, even language itself, etc. Xiaoyao is also a state of 智德, or being in complete control of oneself and being happy with oneself. More importantly, Xiaoyao is the freedom of the mind and spirit. That is, one is free from one's own physical and emotional desires, such as flesh indulgence, fame, and power. For Zhuangzi, all human sufferings come from 心为形意, or the heart and mind being enslaved by the body. Once the heart and mind are enslaved by the body, that is, one is driven by flesh indulgence, fame, or power, one would live in constant anxiety and stress, and would get into conflicts with others. And once such conflicts are amplified by one's resources and power, they would also lead to wars and killings and bring disasters to oneself and many, many others. Zhuangzi also acknowledged that it is human nature to chase flesh pleasure, fame, and power. However, he also believes that a human being can achieve freedom in their heart and mind and avoid the fate of the heart and mind being enslaved by the body. And the means to achieve such physical and spiritual freedom is to break away from the conventional system that values beauty, fame, power, and ultimately the flesh indulgence or pleasure. And more importantly, if I can use a term from contemporary psychotherapist jargon, one should also adopt the attitude of radical acceptance. That is, to accept the imperfect reality as it is and accept the imperfect self as who you really are. Then it is possible to avoid most of the downfalls we listed above. For instance, I need to accept the fact that I'm not going to become a great philosopher no matter how much effort I put in, and I'm not going to be able to travel all over the world. My YouTube channel might never be a huge success, etc. So, if I could free myself from these desires and not be driven by such desires, how much less stressful my life will become. This is how a Daoist master finds peace under any circumstances. Once one finds peace in one's heart and mind, it is not difficult to maintain a clear mind and view a situation as it really is, without the distortion of one's emotions or bias. If one could view a situation as it really is, then it is possible to make a reasonable judgment about the situation and make a decision that would not bring harm to oneself, hence live a life without too much stress and anxiety even under the most difficult time. Of course, Zhuangzi holds a more radical view on these issues. For Zhuangzi, misery and happiness is simply a question of perspective. I won't have time to talk about that today. I'm going to make a few more videos about Zhuangzi's view on morality and ethics in the future. There are quite a lot of discussion in Zhuangzi on how to find peace in one's heart and mind. It would be quite difficult to even summarize the discussions in a short video. So today, I'm just going to talk about what Zhuangzi imagined life would be like for someone who achieved Xiaoyao. Zhuangzi did not characterize what it is like to be Xiaoyao. Instead, he tells a story about a kind of man he labeled as 神人 or spirit-like man who achieved Xiaoyao. Now, let me read what he said about 神人。渺孤叶之山，有神人居焉。肌肤若冰雪，绰约若处子。不食五谷，西风饮露。乘云气，御飞龙，而游乎四海之外。其神宁，使物不吃力，而年古熟。知人也，知德也，将磅礴万物以为一。知人也，物莫之伤。大尽积天而不逆，大旱金石流，土山焦而不热。Now, let's look at the first two sentences. 渺孤叶之山，有神人居焉。肌肤若冰雪，绰约若处子。渺 means remote. 孤叶 is the name of an imagined mountain by Zhuangzi. 知 means of. 山 means mountain. 有 means there is. 神 means spirit. 人 means person. 居 means live. 焉 means there. 肌 means muscle or flesh. 肤 means skin. 若 means like. 冰 means ice. 雪 means snow. 绰约 means gentle. 若 means like. 处子 means virgin or a innocent maiden. So the two sentences read, far away on the mountain of Guye, there lives a spirit-like man whose flesh and skin are like ice and snow, and whose manner is as gentle as that of an innocent maiden. 不食五谷，西风饮露。乘云气，御飞龙，而游乎四海之外。不 means not. 食 means eat. 五 means five. 谷 means grain. 吸 means breathe in. 风 means wind. 饮 means drink. 露 means dew. 乘 means ride. 云 means cloud. 气 means vapor. 御 means drive. 飞 means fly. 龙 means dragon. 耳 means ant. 游 means roam. 乎 means about. 四 means four. 海 means sea. 之 means of something. 外 means outside or beyond. This long sentence reads, he does not eat the five grain, but breathes in the wind and drinks the dew. Riding on the vapor of clouds and driving flying dragons, he roams beyond the four seas. 其神宁，使物不吃力而年古熟。知人也，知德也，将磅礴万物以为一。七 means his. 神 means spirit. 宁 means concentrate. 使 means make. 物 means things. Here refers to the living things, mostly farm animals. 不 means not. 吃 means disease. 痢 means pestilence. 耳 means and. 年 means year. 谷 means grain. 熟 means ripe. 知 means this. 人 means man. 也 does not have meaning here. It is used as a mark for a stop, which is often used after the names of something followed by a description of that thing. And 知 again means this. 德 means virtue, and 也 again. 将 means take. 磅礴 is an adjective describing all the lively things that fill up the universe. 万 means 10,000. 物 again means things. So 磅礴万物 means the myriad things. 以为 means as. 一 means one. So the two sentences read, by concentrating his spirit, he can protect the creatures from diseases and pestilence and provide a plentiful harvest every year. This man, with his power, would combine the myriad things and make them into one. 知人也，物莫之伤，大尽极天而不逆，大旱金石流，土山焦而不热。知 means this. 人 means man. 物 means thing. 莫 means not. 知 means to. 伤 means harm. 大 means great. 尽 means flood. 极 means rage. 天 means sky. 而 means but. 不 means not. 逆 means strong. 大 again means great. 旱 means drought. 金 means metal. 石 means stone. 流 means flow. 土 means ground. 山 means mountain. 焦 means scorched. 耳 means but. 不 means not. 热 means heat or burn. So the two sentences read, nothing could harm this man. The great floods rising to the sky could not drown him. Nor could the great heat melting metals and stone and scorching all the ground and the mountain burn him. This spirit-like man or person envisioned by Zhuangzi was probably a fantasy for Zhuangzi. However, this fantasy was taken as an obtainable goal for eternal life or immortality, especially after the Daoist religion was founded in 141 AD by Zhang Daoling, the founding father of the first Daoist religion. Many Daoist followers before and after that believed that by cultivating their bodies and minds, 升仙 or immortality is achievable. Even the great poet Li Bai seriously pursued immortality by registered as a Daoist practitioner. So were many of the emperors during the 2,000 years of Chinese history. However, this fundamentalist reading of Zhuangzi is not even sustainable within the text of Zhuangzi itself. Discussions on life and death within the text certainly indicate this shenren or spirit-like person is a fantasy rather than an obtainable goal for Zhuangzi. A philosophical reading of this story is probably more suitable than a literary reading. For Zhuangzi, a spirit-like man is someone who adapts to the rhythms of the cosmos and acts accordingly. In my first video on Confucius' political vision, I mentioned briefly that many ancient Chinese philosophers believed that the cosmos is musical. There are rhythms at different scales of the cosmos that all living and non-living things abide to. According to Zhuangzi, this spirit-like man is just someone who has grasped and mastered these rhythms and was able to fit his or her life perfectly with this rhythm. It is not that the spirit-like person has magical power to avoid being harmed by flood, heat, and famine. It is because he or she, by adapting to the rhythms of the cosmos, is able to predict what is about to happen and anticipate what will happen before disasters strike. Just like a skilled dancer can perfectly anticipate what would be the next few steps in a dance even though she or he never heard the music before. More importantly, with a clear mind and appreciation of the rhythmic changes of the world, a Daoist master would simply accept whatever that comes to his or her way and make the best of it. This spirit-like person is someone who adapts his or her perspectives and attitude to the rhythms of the cosmetic changes. This insight gave me a huge relief when facing difficult times. For instance, when I was teaching at my university, being happy means to get all my lectures prepared on time, deliver most of my lecture to my satisfaction, and finish all my marking on time. However, this should not be the things that defines who I am and what it is happiness for me. The circumstance will change, so is my perception of what constitutes happiness. So, when circumstance changes, it is to be expected and anticipated. Rather than sinking into depression and complaints, well, I did quite a bit of that. Reading Zhuangzi brought me enormous comfort, and it was not that difficult to accept what had happened once I have done all I could. Perhaps more importantly, Zhuangzi makes it clear that all things operate on different tempo scales. What seems an enormous disaster in one tempo scale might not look as huge on another tempo scale. Losing a job, a home, or a relationship, or the failure of a business is certainly enormous disasters to one person within a short period of time. However, if one changes the tempo scale to a lifetime, they are not that huge anymore. If one expands the tempo scale to a few hundred years, the personal suffering seems less significant comparing to the enormous suffering experienced by millions upon millions of people. Furthermore, when the tempo scale is expanded, other significance of such changes will also unfold. One can learn from a failed relationship or business and become a better or a more competent person when dealing with personal or business affairs. I'm not downplaying the enormity of personal losses. It is always hard to cope with radical changes in one's life. My own experience taught me how painful they can be. However, what I'm trying to show is how one can cope with such pain and how one can suffer less given such changes, statistically speaking, will happen to most of us during our lifetime. And what a Daoist attitude could help us when we are living through such difficult times. Now, let's have a bit of fun reading a poem from the 5th century. This poem expressed perfectly how to find peace in a chaotic time. 结庐在人境，而无车马喧。问君何能尔？心远地自偏。采菊东篱下，悠然见南山。山气日夕佳，飞鸟相与还。此中有真意，欲辨已忘言。结庐在人境，而无车马喧。问君何能尔？心远地自偏。结 means tie up something or make a knot. Traditionally, the Chinese build their houses by pins and tying the beams together like this. Lu means a shed or a very simple cottage. Jieru means to tie up the beams to build a simple cottage. Zai means among. Ren means human. Jing means realm. Means yet. Wu means without. Che means carriage. Ma means horse. Xuan means clamor. Wen means ask. Jun means you. But here it's used as a self-reference. So we translate it as myself. He means how. Neng means can. Means this. Xin means heart and mind. Yuan means far away. Di means place. Zi means naturally. Pian is an abbreviation of Pianpi, refers to places that are remote and with fewer population. So the 4 lines read, I built a cottage among the realm of people, yet untroubled by carriages and horse clamor. I ask myself how I do this. If my heart is far away, home is far away too. 采菊东篱下，悠然见南山。山气日夕佳，飞鸟相与还。采 means gather. 菊 means chrysanthemum. 东 means eastern. 篱 means hedge. 下 means under. 悠 means leisure. 悠然 is a state that is relaxed and content. 见 means gaze. 南 means south. 山 means mountain. 气 means air. 日 means day. 夕 means dusk. 佳 means nice or crisp. 飞 means fly. 鸟 means bird. 相与 means twin up or pair up. 还 means return. So the 4 lines read, I gather chrysanthemum from the eastern hedge and hurriedly gaze at the south mountain. All day the mountain air is crisp, birds twining and returning. 此中有真意，欲辨已忘言。此 means this. 中 means inside of. 有 means there is. 真 means true or deep. 意 means meaning. 欲 means try. 辨 means speak. 已 means already. 忘 means forget. 言 means word. So the 2 lines read, in this there is a deep meaning. I try to speak but have already forgotten words. This poem shows how one could achieve peace in one's heart and mind. The key is stated in the 2nd line, 心远. As long as your heart and mind is free, no matter where you are, what are your circumstances, you can achieve peace. You can smile, hear, and see the beautiful things that are all around you. It took quite a bit of nerve for me to make this video and to admit to myself that I need to accept what life throws at me. The process of making this video is also a healing process. It means that I can face myself and my imperfect life and not being ashamed of it. It means the flowers smell sweet for me again. It means birds singing beautifully for me again. It means the sun shines brightly for me again. I emphasize these beautiful things are there for me, even though they are always there and they are certainly not designed for me alone. However, when I'm depressed, angry, frustrated, and sad, I cannot smell the sweet scent of the flowers. I cannot hear the beautiful melody of a bird song. The bright sun does not shine any light on my heart and mind. It only hurts my eyes. Only when I obtain the peace in my heart and mind, I can smell, hear, and see the beauty of the world. Such beautiful things of the world are for me, and they are also there for every one of you. Only when you have the peace of heart and mind, then you can smell, hear, and see them. In my next video, I'm going to talk about 2 poems about romantic love. One by my favorite poet Wang Wei. Here are the 3 videos I made about Wang Wei if you want to know more about him. The other poem is by the great poet Li Bai. Here are the 2 videos I made about Li Bai if you would like to know more about him. If you're new to my channel, please check out my other videos on classical Chinese poetry, philosophies, and medical literature. If you like the content of these videos, please click the like button and subscribe my channel. I also offer one-to-one online lessons on these subjects, so if you like to read those classical texts, please contact me. Here's my email address. Otherwise, thank you for viewing my video, and I'll see you next time.